I started finding and fostering traditional orchards because I wanted to make protecting these amazing places economically sustainable, make the orchards pay for themselves to be looked after again, like they did in the past, and to graft and grow on these amazing genetic traits for the future. They're also repositories of heritage, and more importantly, resilient genes. They're home to apple varieties like Devonshire Buckland and Sweet Coppin that have adapted over generations to this specific climate and soil, requiring no chemical sprays or irrigation to flourish, unlike with modern commercial varieties. Their survival with no intervention is proof of just how hardy, how resilient, what an important genetic resource these trees are. But once that last surviving tree dies, all of that is lost. I wanted to prove that these apples and these orchards could produce something extraordinary, that belongs on the same table as a fine wine. Prove that they're a resource that should be valued, not forgotten. Since the rise of industrial, mass-produced ciders around 50 years ago, we've learnt to think of cider as a cheap drink, made with concentrate and artificial sweeteners, to be consumed without any thought for how it's made, or even how it tastes. Many centuries ago, manors and monasteries in Devon were planting orchards, taking pride in cultivating new varieties, improving their flavour and suitability for producing the finest ciders, known then as the native wines of England. They were a symbol of horticultural excellence, of health and hospitality. It was from these origins that fine cider first emerged. Not farmhouse scrumpy, which came later, but carefully crafted, bottle-fermented cider. It was this foundation I was inspired to build upon when I began to find and foster old orchards in the Exe Valley in Devon. We grew a flock of Shropshire sheep from 3 to 30 to rotate between the orchards we foster. Grazing is the best way to keep these understory species rich. Unlike modern, heavily managed agricultural land and commercial orchards, these little wild old orchards support wildflowers, fine grasses, fungi, and provide homes for millions of small mammals, insects, and birds. We began pruning the trees to improve their health and encourage new growth, managing the orchards not to turn them into manicured spaces with bare herbicide strips surrounding the trees, but to help them continue thriving as living ecosystems, self-regulating biological control systems, where plants like nettles are appreciated as homes for caterpillars rather than seen as weeds, but kept in check as part of a balanced biodiverse ecosystem. Grazing them with sheep replaces jobs usually done with tractors, herbicides, and artificial fertilizers. The sheep keep the grass and weeds down, fertilize lightly as they go, and more birds and insects like ladybirds mean more predators for pests like aphids, so they even replace pesticides too. Before farming, wild grazing herds shape these landscapes. Deer, cattle, and other herbivores help maintain healthy ecosystems, so we work with those principles and keep it fossil fuel free. When you walk through these orchards at harvest time, when the fruit is fully ripe, you begin to really appreciate what an incredible resource they are, producing apples with all levels of acidity, tannin, and sweetness, all kinds of fruity aromas and flavours. Some smell like pineapple, others taste like plums, while some are so tannic one bite strips all of the saliva from your mouth, leaving it drier than you could imagine, while others are so sour they leave you salivating. We began harvesting the apples and looked to historical records to see what methods were being used back when cider was in its prime. Getting to know the individual trees, the land, the seasons, the wild yeasts, enables makers to produce ciders with all the complexity, depth, nuance and structure of fine wine. Ciders that speak of the orchard, the weather that year, the soil in that particular area, the age of the tree, in other words, the terroir. And this, to me, is why cider and traditional orchards in particular deserve to be valued as much or more than fine wine and vineyards, because at its best it's not just a drink, it's an expression of place and time, it's a cultural artefact, and when made from fruit grown in traditional orchards, it becomes something more, a way to preserve biodiversity, resilient genes, history and craftsmanship.